Okay, so one of the things that I learned in Donna's workshop these past few days is that small movements can have big impacts. That a lot of times when we're struggling with an injury or trying to figure out a niggle in your body, like a movement pattern that's just you can't quite figure out what the problem is or where the root of the problem is or maybe your mobility is compromised in some way, maybe you've hurt your back and just any kind of movement is difficult, that sometimes shrinking movement down instead of getting so big, can be very helpful to not only help us heal, but to kind of know ourselves and kind of understand where the limitations are. So a lot of times, let's say your knee hurts when you go into a squat or something. And you just do it anyway because my knee always hurts in a squat, so I'm just going to squat anyway because my knee hurts in a squat. What if you kind of, backed that down and went so slow where you figured out the point right before the pain began and figured out what needs to be recruited here? What's the problem? Like what if you slow down enough and you keep the movement small enough, sometimes you can really learn a lot about, oh, I noticed my knee caves in right before I, get that pain, or I'm making this example up, but a lot of times if we slow down and we move smaller, we can really get a better clue of what's happening. And I think I'm not alone in, we've all kind of ignored things in the body, like, oh, once I warm up, that pain goes away and I just kind of move through it or I do it anyway because it's not that bad. And then, you wonder why all this repetitive action ends up kind of being a problem. So, using opportunities to do smaller movements to slow down so you can pay attention and find ranges of motion that are available to you that don't hurt. So pain is always a clue. It's always a something you should pay attention to. Pain is never something you should ignore. Even if you make a choice to do a movement despite pain or with pain, you should never ignore it. So you should be curious about it and try to understand what is happening here. So that's one thing about smaller movements that is very helpful. And the other thing that's really good about smaller movements, and I think a lot of yogis are guilty of this, right? That if you are very flexible by nature, the feeling, that so good feeling of stretching, sometimes we wait for ourselves to get to the end range of a movement to feel like, oh, that feels so good. And it is good to get to the end range of your motion. I'm not saying don't move to the end points of your ranges. Um, but for if hypermobility is a problem for you, in any way, in any joint. Like I have some joints in my body that are more mobile than others. But if you have a hypermobile joint, try, or if you're just that way in general, or if you're addicted to the feeling of that end range stretch, like, the deep, right? Then try to expand your capacity for sensation in the mid range. So, a lot of times we're like, nothing, nothing, nothing. Oh, now I feel, because that's the stretch, right? That's the end of the stretch, and I feel this. And we kind of imprint our nervous system to only pay attention to sensation at end range. Um, and so if we want to kind of color in our body awareness more, our embodiment more, getting really good at awareness and of sensation in the mid range or even in no range, just in stillness, can be a really beautiful way of expanding our embodiment. Not only because then we're more joyful in our bodies because we're more whole in our sensation, but also because we're much more cued in to when a problem arises. If you have a lot more built up sensation before end range, you will start to notice things in mid range that are absent in your mind now that will help prevent problems in end range. Like you may realize, no, I have to back off before end range because that's not a safe range for my body. So I could blabber on a lot about this, but I think, one of the things that I've experienced in my practice a lot, which I really enjoy, is getting right to the edge of end range, but not crossing over it. And I like dancing in that place. I like that place. And I'm not saying don't go to that place, but I'm saying expand so that you enjoy all the places. So moving in small ranges can sometimes help us gain awareness in those places that sometimes can be a little quiet. So that's the nuggets for today. Okay. All right. So let's close your eyes, um, and sit up straight and tall and have a moment to just get yourself settled. Okay. Maybe you've had a busy morning or day, in the case of other time zones. Um, whatever has come before, let's see if we can just drop into an awareness of right now. And take some time. Maybe you want to wiggle around and move to get your body to settle. You can get your yayas out a little bit with a little movement if that feels good. And then when you're ready to settle, close your eyes for a moment so you can create that sense of pratyahara a little bit, where you tune inward instead of outward. So much of our experience is sensing what's outside of us. So let's turn the attention to sense what's inside. And just pay attention to notice your breath. And even, you might find that when you turn to your breath, you all of a sudden get your breath as big as you possibly can. So let's practice this small movements just with an awareness of the smallness of our breath. So I don't mean shrink your breath. I just mean notice the natural breathing may not be as big as what you create it to be when you turn your attention toward it. So see if you can just notice your natural rhythm of breath, not just the rhythm, but the expansive and condensive nature of your breath, and what might feel kind of normal to you, instead of the feeling, oh, I get to take a beautiful, big, deep breath right now, which is awesome. But maybe for the first few breaths, just pay attention to what a mid-range breath feels like. Is there any subtle, small gesture you can do in your body that would enhance your capacity for breathing that you notice lives in this mid-range? Maybe you can open your collarbones, or feel your sternum rise, or relax your belly, or align your head, or take your shoulders back. I mean, there's just so many aspects of some small gesture you might be able to do that would make your breath more efficient, give you some more freedom. So experiment with those small gestures and notice that sometimes small things can have big impacts. I know for me, just the small gesture of relaxing my diaphragm can have a huge impact on the sensation of my breath. And then as we start to invite a little more depth, a little more space, a little more expansion, and a little more condensement, that rhythm of breath changes a little bit, slows down and gets a little broader. And as you let this breath get wider, bigger, broader, what are you noticing? What changed in your body to accommodate that? Where are you inviting that breath from? What's originating the expansiveness? How does your mind respond to the bigger breath? How does your nervous system respond to the bigger breath? So pay attention to the subtle little changes, not only in your structure, but in the response of your mind and body in its wholeness. And then take a couple rounds of breath where we now touch our end range. Make your breath, fill up the tank all the way, big, big open breath, and then a full exhale as well. And just notice what shifts in your mind and body when you bring your breath to its most full place. And then after a few rounds of that, make a choice of those three ranges, the kind of narrow range, the mid range, the big range. Make a choice what felt the best. And that's not to say one is better than the other. We need big breaths sometimes more than little breaths. Sometimes we need little breaths more than big breaths, sometimes in the middle. So in this moment, for what is required for your energy, for your body, right in this moment, what is the perfect amount of breathing for right now? And when you settle into whatever that titration is along the spectrum, enjoy it. See if you can commune with that sense of, I'm creating exactly what I need for right now. And to me, this is a deep part of balance, is titration along a spectrum. It's not, I do this swing all the way over here, so I have to do this swing all the way over on the other side to create balance. Sometimes balance is just knowing where along the spectrum we need to be in any given moment. And this doesn't just land in the breath, but in how much activity we create in our mind or in our actions, what kind of offering of rest we give ourselves, how much capacity we have to help others. So many things. So see if you can notice your breathing as we practice and see where along that spectrum the breath wants to be at any given moment. Bring your hands to your heart and let's just give ourselves a moment to feel this mudra of centering. Simple gestures can have profound impact. This simple gesture, it's not a big movement, it's a small little movement, but notice what it does. And then release the hands. And let's find our way onto our back. All right, so as you stretch out and lengthen your body on the ground, have a moment to just enjoy the feeling of getting connected to the ground, to feeling the joy of the support of the earth below you. Notice the textures below you. Is it soft? Is it hard? Is it bumpy? Is it smooth? Just let your shoulders relax. Feel the full weight of your head drop down. And then when you think you have the full weight of your head, drop it down again because there might be a little extra there that you are holding. Just let your body relax into that Shavasana feel before we even begin. Notice as you go how big your breath naturally wants to get. And if you find yourself shrinking and you feel like you need more, tend to that. If you find yourself finding that mid-range and it feels just right to go a little deeper, a little less deep, find your way in your breath. All right, so stretch the arms overhead and notice in different positions, different kind of breath wants to happen. When I stretch my arms overhead, I naturally want to take a big, deep breath and it feels so good. So just notice what happens for you. Stretching, lengthening one side, lengthening the other side. And notice if you're kind of the type A overachiever kind of vibes going on in your body where you want to stretch all the way. And that feels really good. And then see maybe if you can be type B for a moment and just stretch not to right to the end, but see if you can just in this simple gesture have a little bit of awareness and feeling, not in your most extreme. So try to tend to that mid place where we can heighten our awareness of what's happening. Let's draw our knees in toward our chest and rock a little bit, swaying. Sometimes we just need to broaden our sensate experience instead of deepen into a movement. All right, circle your knees, kind of roll your knees. And let's see, instead of this big circle that sometimes we might get, let's see if we can shrink this movement down. Circle like you're circling the size of a quarter, maybe even the size of a nickel. And see if you can put your mind into what's moving and just draw your awareness into the smaller thing that's happening. What are you finding? What's there that you're noticing that you might have missed with the big circles? Go the other direction. What's one thing that you're noticing that you might have missed in the big circles? All right, and then feel free to create some bigger movements. Maybe have some circles that are big now. Slow things down. Remember, going slow and going small can sometimes have very profound. You don't always have to practice this way. I'm not saying that you need to, be slow as molasses through everything that you do on your yoga mat, but varying your speed of movement and varying your range of motion can be very informative to your body-mind connection. Let's open our knees now away from the midline and bring them back in. And same, small movements to begin. Maybe each knee can have its own little circle where you feel the hip joints. And especially if you have any snaps, cracks, pops that happen in your hip joints, see if you can slowly titrate these circles to be bigger without getting into that snap, crackle, or pop if that happens to your joint. And then just slowly spiraling into a bigger movement. Notice the volume getting maybe a little louder. And then maybe circling the other direction with your knees. And you can start big and maybe start to spiral those circles of each knee a little smaller, a little smaller, a little smaller, until your circles are the size of a quarter or a nickel again. All right. And draw your right knee into your chest. Stretch your left leg long on the ground. And same, do you go to your biggest thing right away? What would it feel like to put your left foot on the ground as you compress the right knee in? What's different here when you have less range? Or what are you noticing? For me, I notice it's much easier to balance my pelvis, keep even weight through my hips. And then as you start to straighten that left leg, notice what shifts. Maybe your back changes shape. Maybe your pelvis changes shape. Just notice what you're doing. And then once you go into the position that's most comfortable for you, whatever that is, let's go ahead and move around in your ankles. Wiggle your toes. Get your feet awake. Do you have any snaps, cracks, pops here? Sometimes joint pops and snaps are just the joint freeing itself. But if you have any clicking that kind of consistently happens over and over again with a movement, this is a place to get very curious. All right, let's cross a little tiny movement and roll right over onto your left side. Okay, I promise we'll do the other leg. And while you're here, I'll turn just so you can see me if you need to see me. Take right angles with your body, palm over palm, knee over knee to start. And then don't let your knees stay together. Let them slide, but we're going to focus on the hands. So just slide the top hand, your right hand across the left forearm, and back. So we're just sliding. We do this twist sometimes, this opening the book, closing the book twist, but we're going much more subtle. We're just sliding the hand along the arm as we slowly start to rock the spinal twist. And then go ahead and keep your hands together and let the movements originate from your femur bones. So driving your hip back and forward so that your knee kind of drags along the inseam of the other leg. And your hand will move too, but just let your focus be on that subtle shifting of your hip back and forth. And just notice what's happening in the sacrum, in the low back, in the hips as you just gently do this movement. And then stillness here for a moment, and we'll slide the arms again, sliding it all the way open to a twist. Let the knees move away from each other. Turn your head and just see what that's like. And then we'll bring the hand back and slide our hands together again. So one more time, opening up into a big twist here, titrating it open as you'd like. And then instead of bringing the arm up in the air, slide it over your head to come back round to the palms together. And let's do it one more time. Notice your knees sliding apart as you roll open to the twist. A nice gentle rotation for the spine. Arm rolls over the head to come back. And this time we'll open the arm and the knee up in the air. And then bring that hand and knee back down toward the ground. And then open your knee up in the air and roll all the way onto your back and let your right heel stay on the ground and roll into a twist the other direction. So we're taking our right knee down toward our left foot. And just find that internal rotation of that hip. And then rolling back. And we'll do that one more time. So the legs are going to separate, the arms are going to separate, roll toward your back, onto your back, pick up that right knee and take it toward the left foot. Stretch that internal rotation. And then roll all the way back. And then we'll come on to our back one more time. Left knee into your chest, right leg, foot on the ground to begin. And just notice the balance across your pelvis. Keep your knee in. Focus your attention deep inside. So we're moving slowly. See if you can let the brain kind of, drop itself down into the level of movement that we're doing in this slow pace. Maybe you want to straighten that right leg now and just notice as you straighten the leg, what happens in your pelvis. Do you anterior tilt the pelvis a little bit? How's your low back feel? Where in that range do you want to land your leg? Go ahead and move around, wiggle through your toes, roll in your ankles. And again, maybe you can pay attention to notice if there's any joint in your feet or ankles that tends to make some noise. Feel some crumblies or some crunchiness, that crepitus. There's a lot that can be happening in any joint in the body. And then we'll roll over to the side. So we're doing the opposite side of what we just did. Okay. And we're going to let the top arm slide along the forearm and back. And the knees will slide too. We're not locking our hips up. Just have a couple of passes of just sliding that hand on the forearm. And then keep the hands fairly steady. They'll move, but focus on the hip. See if you can just draw the top knee back and forward. And just notice this in your pelvis. Your SI joints, your low back. Just subtly kind of sense what is happening there. And then we'll roll open into a fuller twist. And then bring the arm back overhead. And just sliding open to a twist. And maybe this time we'll take the arm in a big arc over our head on the ground to bring them back toward each other. A nice gentle range of motion of the shoulder joint. As you move slowly and gently, are you letting the goal of your practice today to be heightening your awareness of your body in smaller movements or slower movements. Let's begin to open up the knee, open up the arm. We roll to our back and let that knee in your other leg internally rotate. And then roll back. How's the breath, by the way? Roll open. Feel that knee move toward the foot. So you internally rotate that thigh. And let's do one more. Rolling open. And now notice this is the most gentle of beginnings, right? Where we're not pressing ourselves into extreme movements quickly, but taking our sweet time. Roll open into a star, stretch your limbs wide, maybe your wrists and your fingers and your ankles and your toes. Have some movement here. A big breath in and then exhale. Draw in the knees to your chest. Put your feet onto the ground. Okay. Ground through your feet and let's lift up into a bridge. So keep your arms down at your sides and just feel that engagement in the lower body or the back body. And then we'll slowly lower our body back down. Okay. Maybe this pass you want to have the arms coming up overhead, noticing vertebrae by vertebrae lifting off the ground. And then vertebrae by vertebrae lowering back down onto the ground. One more time. Can you feel the subtlety of each vertebrae lifting up? When we move slower and not as extreme, there's a lot more that we can pay attention to. It may feel like, what am I doing? I'm bored. I want to move. Notice if you're antsy to get bigger movements, faster movements in your body, and recognize that might be a cue that you could use some slowing down. Okay, so ground into the feet now. We're going to lift up into the hips. Feel each vertebrae roll up off the ground. And then hold this for a moment. Notice what your neck is doing. Have your shoulders open. Feel some freedom in your throat. Breathing. Okay, squeezing the back body, starting to get in some engagement. And then we're going to slowly, as we go down, shift your hips, kind of swing your bridge. So swinging left, swinging right as you come down to the ground. Rest when you're ready. And we'll do this one more time. Notice each vertebrae lifting up off the ground. And then as we come down into our swinging bridge, notice each thoracic vertebrae as it finds its way to the ground. So we're just so slowly, small movements, letting one vertebrae down at a time while we have a slight swing in the hips. So there's a little lateral movement as we descend. All right, so just notice, take your feet a little further from your hips. Pay attention to a breath here. And then roll over onto your side and come up to your hands and your knees. All right, so let's find the movement of our vertebrae, one vertebrae at a time. See if you can start at your tail, lift the tail, ripple through your spine, let the sternum rise and be the support for your neck. And try not to pull your chin too far up. See if you can keep that long, spacious spine. And then we'll switch directions. Maybe start with your head and roll your shoulders up toward the sky and then ripple into the rest of your spine. One vertebrae at a time. So moving slow. Notice mid-range. Notice if you are an end range person that you really always just want to kind of find the end. Okay, see if you can find the mid-range. Broaden your sensation as much as you can in the mid-range of your motion. And then take some swirls and some swishes and some and even this, that we slow your roll, literally, feeling. Are you breathing? Is every part of your spine in engagement in some way? And notice how your body has patterns. You probably are flowing into a movement pattern that's familiar and kind of etched in your body. All right, then we'll find our way to child's pose and stretch back and notice the lengthening through your body. Take a deep breath. Okay. We did this yesterday. I'm going to show you from behind again. I really like this. I forgot all about it until Donna showed me again. Okay, so instead of the lateral bend, which we often do, stretching from one side to the other, we're going to do this with our hips. So come up on tall fours. We're going to move our feet over to the left side. Put your right foot on top of your left ankle and stretch back. And you can do it the opposite way too. You can put the other foot on top. So I want you to experiment right here on one side. Switch your ankles and see what feels good for your body. Go slow so you can practice each direction and notice. Everybody's a little different. So whatever pattern you liked, do that on the other side. Shift your hips over and drop back with your pelvis. Back up on tall fours, over to the other side. Come back up. There's no right or wrong way for your ankle crossing. So just kind of see what feels good as we come back up. Shift our hips and our feet to the side. Back towards child's pose. Up again. Shift your feet toward the side and drop back. And notice this as you move through your vertebrae, through your rib cage, through your hips, through the sideways. See what feels good. There's a lot of warming of the spinal tissues when you do this action. Okay, so I'll show you from the, I think hopefully you got it. Sorry, stick my butt in your face. But hopefully showing you my feet and the back of my body is helpful to help you get that range. All right, we'll come back up onto all fours and find your way to a dog pose. Feel that extension, take a little time and pedal your feet. And notice, do you immediately try to go to the big stretch? Maybe titrate just a little bit where you have a couple passes that are a little less deep. And then you just get a little deeper with each pass, giving your body a little time to warm up as you pedal your feet. And then when you feel ready, settle into your dog pose, ground. Take some deep breaths here. Open your breath up. Do you want the big breath that I just offered to take a deep breath, or is that not the range that your body's looking for right now? Try not to overdo. So even if you're going to end range of breath or end range of a joint movement, end range of a stretch, see if you can be very mindful to not go past. We don't want to breach those kinds of walls in our body. Very respectful. Okay, walk your feet forward. Come to Uttanasana. Relax your skull. Feel the surrender through your head. Inhale for a halfway lift. Opening up here, femur bones up and back. Spread open your feet and just notice. Maybe you want to pedal your feet here. Maybe you want a little higher blocks underneath you. Just kind of find the height that's right. And let your hips move here. So we're letting the hip move back as we drop the heel down and the other knee bends. Just going back and forth and paying attention to that subtle movement in the SI joints. Okay. So this doesn't have to be a big movement. And notice if you're waiting for that sensation to kind of hit you. See if you can notice sensation the whole way through instead of just that zing at the end of your range. And then relax and fold deeply again. Release your head. Push through your feet, rising up. Okay, take your time. We've been down, so if you need a little blood pressure squeeze of the midline, do that. Okay, rising up, big breath. Let's see if we can open up the heart, expand. Let's cactus open our chest, spread your wings, and then exhale and bring your hands to touch. Pause here for a moment and find your breath. Where's the range that feels best in your breath right now? Notice as you become embodied and warm up if the bigger breath feels like the middle breath now. Okay. Inhale, rise up. Yeah, stretch open, maybe a cactus arms. Turn to the side and let your elbows land right where your shoulders are. And just take your hands back as you kind of rotate into a little bit of a heart opener here. The neck is long. We're not flinging our head back. Hands back, chest up. And then reach up to the sky and then exhale and float forward. Release tension in your neck. A halfway lift, open through your spine. Exhale and release to fold. How are you doing with mid-range sensation? Are you paying attention to try to feel into that? Step back to a dog pose. Feel that groundedness, root down. And what are you noticing before you go to your most push off? You know, like that push of your hands and your feet and the deep lift and the stretch, which feels so good. And we're going to get there. But what do you notice right before there? See if you can pause into a little backing off and expand your awareness of sensation right here. And then slowly let that expand a little deeper and a little deeper so that you follow the trail of sensation as you get into a deeper stretch. And let's come forward into a plank. Shoulders away from the ears, ground through your hands, root the index finger mounds down, and notice your breath now. Put your knees onto the ground, find the ground. Roll the shoulders a couple times, free things up. Let's come up to a cobra. Shoulders back, elbows back. Try not to fling the neck back. Exhale and relax again. Stabilize your core. Engage your back muscles like you don't even need your hands. Let the hands push be the last of what you do instead of the first of what you do. And then exhale and relax back down. And let's come up just a little bit in a cobra. So you're not pushing your vertebrae into their extreme range, but what do you find stabilization-wise? Draw the shoulder blade tips back. Draw the elbows toward the hips. Stabilize your pelvis and press your legs into the ground. And feel all your structural support, your strength. And then relax and come back down. Come up onto all fours. Move around in the spine. Wiggle your tail. Maybe shimmy your feet left and right and just find that lateral movement of the spine, swishing like a fish. Then lift to a dog pose again. Root and rise. Feel sensation the whole way through. All right, walk your feet forward. Come to Uttanasana. Release into this pose. Bend your knees as much as you need. Let your neck hang. A halfway lift. Notice sensation the whole way. Maybe pause before your end range and just hang out there for a moment and pay attention to what you feel. And then after a couple breaths, maybe go a little further. See if you can just expand your sensory awareness beyond your end range. Okay, relax on the exhale, bend your knees, and then push through your feet, rising up. Trace down through the center. Step your left foot back, your right foot is in front. Find your lunge. Stay upright for a moment, hands to your heart. Notice, try bending your back knee just a little bit and notice the shape of your pelvis. And see if you can keep that tail descending and the pubic bone lifting as you start to straighten that back knee a little bit. And notice if there's a moment when you're like, oops, my low back just compressed. So bend the knee again, like you're going down into a little bit of a lunge squat, okay? And then start to straighten that back leg. Pay attention to the lumbar spine. Use your core to protect and see what it feels like. Can you get your leg straight without compressing and kind of creating a divot in your low back or not? So a lot of times if we go right in, we don't even notice those little things. Inhale, arms up, and your knee can be straight or bent, whatever is stabilizing for your body. Use your core. Okay. Reaching the arms up. Feel the sternum rise as you start to lift toward a little bit more of a back bend in this pose, a heart opener in this pose. What's happening in that low back again? Try bending the back knee just a teeny bit to give you that stabilization of the pelvis. And then we'll release the hands down, back foot comes forward. Fold. A halfway lift, open up. And then exhale, we'll take the other foot back. Left foot is now in front. Come to your lunge. Okay, rise up. Maybe you want to start with your hands on your hips. So you just notice your pelvis a little bit more. Especially if you can back bend easily, if you're hypermobile in your spine, or if it just feels good to back bend. This is an important place for you to hang out for a moment. Bend the back knee and just feel the stabilization of the pelvis. The pubic bone up, the tail down. Hold this with the pelvic floor and the core. Press your legs into the ground, reach your arms upward. And then just gently, slowly, small movements. Try to straighten that back leg and notice where that seesaw between your low back and your leg straightening happens. Can you straighten your leg while keeping your lumbar spine intact in its stability? Or when you straighten that back leg, do you just fall into an anterior tilt and smush your low back? So try to stabilize the back. Use the core, only go into the range of motion that you can stabilize with strength. Expand upward with your arms, open the heart. As you start to expand into a little bit of a chest opener here, what happens to the low back? Can you still support with the pelvic floor, the legs, the core? Is the pelvis stable as you rise up? And then we'll release the hands down, back to a dog pose. Notice, hear, breathe. All right, we'll come forward into a plank. Shoulders away from the ears. How's the breath? Do you want a big breath? And then we'll put our knees down onto the ground. Find your way to the floor again. Okay. All right, so find your arms out. Turn your palms out a little bit so your forearms are at a 30-degree angle-ish. Drop your shoulders. Now, if you are not paying attention and you just want to go into full range, you might lift your head and just really open up. And that isn't so stable. So feel the strength of your legs. Stretch into your feet. Engage your quads. Feel the pelvis stabilize down. And then as you open your chest, do it from the strength of those back muscles in your core. Lots of strength in this pose. It's not just about sinking and falling to the ground. All right, and then relax. Come out of there, come up on all fours, and move your spine around. Now, instead of just kind of swinging your hips around, maybe you can do some of those smaller pelvic movements again. Smaller movements in your shoulders or in your ribs. Curl the toes under and lift all the way up to a dog. Okay, walk your feet forward. And we'll come all the way to stand. All right, so let's come wide with your legs. Okay. Come down to a deep squat to start to open up our hips this way. Just notice, do you automatically go into your deepest place? See if you can back off a little bit. All right, and then when we come on up, we'll find this range in our goddess pose here. So as we come down, keep your hands on your hips for a moment and just see if you can move ever so slowly so that when you come down into this pose, you can notice, oh, this is the moment my hip starts to hurt, or this is the moment my knee starts to hurt, or this is the moment my toes curl, or my knees cave, or my pelvis tilts, or my ribs pop. Whatever the compensation that you tend to do to sneak away from the pose, you can find it if you move slowly and not so deep. Okay, if you just whipped right down and right up, you would miss those little moments where you can say, oh, this is exactly the depth that my hip starts to ache, or I tip my pelvis, whatever it is. So just explore, moving very slowly as you go down and as you come up. Notice if your weight bearing shifts from one leg to the other. We're going to do this in a squat in a moment, a regular squat. I think this is very informative. A lot of times, especially, if we're exercising a little more aggressively, which is great, aerobic exercise or strength building exercise, we can do these things quicker and we don't give ourselves the opportunity to slow down and make movements small so we can pay attention to where our missing links or our weak links are. Bring your legs together, or not together, but hip width or a little bit wider apart. And we're going to go into some squats. And instead of just like whipping into your squat super fast, notice, is that really where I want my feet? Maybe my feet need to be turned out a little teeny bit more or a little teeny bit less. And look down, are my feet the same? Or do I just think they're the same? Are they equal to each other? Okay, so whatever position, width, or turning your feet that you want, and we'll slowly bring your hands to your heart. So slowly, slow motion, come down into your squat and pay attention to the recruitment of muscles. Maybe there's a moment when you shift your weight into one leg or the other because a knee hurts or a hip is bothersome or your pelvis is weird. See if you can pay attention to where the asymmetries and the symmetries lie and what recruits to help you get stronger here. So just going very slow-mo, up and down. Can you feel your pelvic floor? Can you feel your core? Are your glutes working evenly? Do you weight bear through your feet the same? Are you taking weight evenly through your feet? Do you knock into inner feet, outer feet? The slower you go, the more opportunity you have to notice all the little things. So patience. Sometimes it's good to have a yoga practice that's super slow so that you can just notice all the little things. Does one side of your hip push forward or the other? Do you tuck your tail? Do you arch your back? Like, what's happening? I'm just throwing out all the different things to think about, but you just pay attention to sensation. Make sure you're still breathing. Don't feel like you have to go to your deepest squat, but maybe you need to go a little deeper to explore what happens when I go a little deeper. Then, if you're always living in this little top range, go slow and try going a little deeper and see, why do I avoid that? What is there that I'm shying away from? Is it a lack of strength or effort? Or do you have a vulnerability that your body's intuitively avoiding? Okay. How are you doing? All right, now pick up the pace just a little bit and see if you can just go from the movement of some squatting a little quicker and notice if you've lost sight of something. As you move deeper or quicker, have you lost sight of something? All right, so I know you're getting tired of doing squats, so let's relax that and come to a wide stance. Turn your feet forward and we'll just come down into Pasrita. Now notice, do you automatically go to your deepest place? Move slowly toward your depth. Wide legs, spread your feet, lift your quads. Notice if one hip hikes towards the sky or forward. take advantage of the slow and the not so deep right away to notice where your compensatory actions are. Make sure you're breathing. And we could do this all day long with this slow pace in every single posture that you do. So I encourage you sometimes, we don't always want to move this slowly. Go ahead and come down now into child's pose for a moment. But sometimes, especially if you have an area of concern in your body, I encourage you to try to move through range of motion with whatever that joint is that's bothering you, slowly with deep awareness, so that you can notice, oh, this is the weak link, or this is the compensation that I tend to do. So you can be very, have a heightened awareness toward that. Let's roll over onto our right side and let's stretch our quads. Grab onto, you can put a block under your head if you need a little support. Grab onto the front of your left ankle and stretch that thigh bone back. And even here, have you gone immediately to your deepest place? Because you want to feel the strong sensation. Back away until you get less strong of a sensation, and then just explore that. What's there? Can you bloom that in your mind and in your body? And then in order to go deeper into the stretch or deeper into the range of motion, can you do it without pushing? Is there a way that you can blossom the fibers of your muscles open that's kind of like from the inside out instead of yanking on the joints? Sometimes if we just give our muscles a little moment, they expand, and then we can take our range a little deeper without it tugging on the ligaments and tendons. All right, and then bring that knee in. Let's roll to the other side. And again, see if you can avoid just immediately going to your deepest place. Back away just a little bit and let your body explore what's there. And see if you can open into the depth, not by pulling harder on the joints, but by expanding the muscle tissue itself. For your thigh, can you feel the lengthening of your femur bone, or the lengthening of your muscles along the front of your femur bone, happen from the center out to the edges, the center of the thigh toward the knee, the center of the thigh toward the femur bone or toward the hip, and bloom from there. And then you might notice that you have a little slack, and you can go a little deeper into the range of motion. So wait for the slack and then move deeper. Wait for the slack and then move deeper. Try not to pull yourself into the alignment or into the full range. Patience is a virtue. And sometimes slowing our practice down can be so helpful for our awareness. Let's go ahead and roll onto your back. Okay. Bring your right foot on your left knee, reverse your pigeon, and same. Maybe you pick your head up and you grab your deepest place and you're like, oh, okay, I got this deep stretch. And then you try to figure out how to be there. Instead, figure out how to be there and then find your way into the depth. So you could start out not holding anything and just kind of bring your knee slowly toward your chest. And then maybe you grab somewhere and try not to yank on your body. See if you can organically let the pose unfold instead of pulling it into place. What needs to bloom? How's your breath? Even here, have you noticed when you go deeper, does your pelvis shift? Did one hip hike up? Did you lift your tailbone up? Did you, what adjustments are you doing to try to get depth in the pose? See if you can keep your pelvis stable. Widen the sit bones. Drop the tailbone down toward the ground so you stay in that neutral spine instead of rolling into a posterior tilt. A lot of times when we get into the minutia like this, we lose our breath. So try to keep the breath. And then we'll put our feet on the ground and switch sides. Left foot on right knee. Maybe you start just simply by keeping your foot on the ground and just notice, what does my pelvis do? Does my hip want to hike up? Did one side of my sacrum lift off the ground? You know, what's happening? And then slowly start to find a little more depth. Instead of immediately starting by picking up your head, grabbing your thigh, and then trying to settle yourself back into the pose. See if you can go slower into the posture. And you might notice that your range of motion isn't as deep as you thought it was, and that it's all compensation to get you there. I noticed that on one side, that, you know, one side, I think I can grab my shin pretty well, but then I noticed, oh, my hip's all weird and I'm contorted to get there. So try to stay with the principles of your sacrum balanced, your sit bones wide, your hips are even, your head is relaxed. Can you find all these things and just let the pose go to the depth that it can? Breathe your way here. And then relax. Put your feet onto the ground and just notice. Have a breath. And then we'll slowly lower our legs down. Okay. And you can notice, do you need some support underneath you in anywhere under your knees, under your head? Are you comfortable? Adjust anything that needs adjusting and take a moment to just allow yourself to breathe. Now, when you slow down, the practice unfolds so like it's hard to believe an hour's gone by, right? So this is good for our minds, not just for our bodies. But when we slow our pace and we explore more sensation capacity and we really pay attention, we come into that flow state where we are present and timeless. Time goes by fast when you're concentrating on something. So just notice that. Notice how your mind's been present with what you've been doing and how good that is. All right, melt now. See if you can start anywhere, maybe at your head, and rest your brain in the skull. Let it kind of drop toward the back of your head, softening your jaw, relaxing your throat, feeling the weight of your limbs. Slowly begin to deepen our breathing. Take your time for your transition. You can have some movements. You can roll to your side. And then when you feel ready to come up, there's no rush. Once you are sitting again, see if the expansiveness of your breath has, if you're relatively, if it's relative, if your breath in its mid-range is now what the end range was in the beginning of class. Let's bring our hands together and offer our slow pace, our centered, paying attention mind, body. Let's send that quality of energy outward to another. An offering of that introspection, presence. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.